Right, greetings everybody. Welcome to another edition of Balkanizer. Um, and today, Charlie and I are going to be talking about sort of early history, let's say early Christian history. I think we just felt that
Yeah.
um, talk about something we know a bit about. And I mean, what I personally, I think that really you can't really understand the Balkans without understanding the religious aspect. Um, and that was what sort of led me in this direction. What do you think, Charlie?
Well, it makes sense to me. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it has been um, always at the border between Orthodox and Latin Christianity. There's always been the to and fro there. In some ways, I think that divide always again echoes the earlier divides that we've talked about in a geographic context. But yes, I think it makes a lot of sense. And then with the arrival of Islam and the Ottoman Empire as well, it's again then it becomes a conflict zone, a border zone between two religions again. So it has to be understood in a religious context. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's the basic idea. And we're just going to move through um, from the early times, really. Um,
Yeah.
and how, in fact, again, we have this term, the Balkans, but it's, and maybe this people have sort of some sort of negative connotation to that. But in fact, this is where Christianity arrived in Europe. Um,
Yes. Mhm.
as we see here. We're just using this AI
I did so
generated.
much else. Yes,
Yeah, this is
but
like,
yeah.
yeah, that's right. So, you know, um, always remember, Constantinople is in the Balkans. Um, so just using our script here, we just do AI generated script just to give us our sort of starting points. Um, right, yeah. So really, the Apostle Paul arrived here. So if we read in the Acts of the Apostles, how he was in basically what was anciently called Troy, Asia Minor, which is now Western Turkey, and he had this vision of a Macedonian man calling him over to help the people in Macedonia. So he set sail, and he arrived in Europe, in a town which is now called Kavala. So here, this is still there. There's a church there with a big fresco outside, or a mosaic actually outside, which records this event.
Right.
Um, and he went sort of up the hill and over the hill to Philippi, which was a big city there, connected with Philip II, father of Alexander the Great,
Right.
and the
Mm.
gold mining industry in that region, and perhaps other things as well, but that's certainly there were gold mines in that area. So it was a big uh, central population there, and we see extensive reference to that in the Acts of the Apostles. And there's actually a letter in the Bible, one of the epistles of the Apostle Paul is to the Philippians.
Yeah.
So it's
Do we get
fairly
a sense from the epistles of what sort of a community it was? I mean, was it were they very large populations in these
well. I mean, you get
ancient
you get
cities?
sense from the in the Acts of the Apostles, it describes how Paul went there. There was a big, forum, and he was arraigned, for
Hmm.
causing trouble, basically. Basically, what happened was there was a demon-possessed girl, and who was following her around, and he eventually got so annoyed with this that he cast out the devil in effect. And of
Right.
course,
Hmm.
the owners, the managers of this girl, because she was like a sort of false prophet type character, and the
Hmm.
managers were making money out of it, so they were upset, obviously. Um, and he got cast into prison. And you can still see the
Right.
place. I mean, whether there's some dispute about whether it is actually the prison that he was in, but there is a place now, the Apostle Paul's prison. You can see
Hmm.
a little sort of jail type place. So yeah, and you can go and see it. You can go and see the remains, and they are extensive. It was an extensive city.
Hmm.
To walk around it, takes a while.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not just a few stones, but you get the feeling of a a bustling town city. That's what it was like. And also near there is the place where the first baptism in Europe was
Right.
Lydia. And it's
Hmm.
actually called, the village is called Lydia. It's a very pleasant place. The river runs, or stream, I guess it's more like a stream, uh,
Hmm.
runs through this low country. And there's an area where that's where Lydia was baptized, and there's now a church there and a nice little garden. Um,
Right. Right. Hmm.
so, this historic meeting, or of a place where, the gospel came to Europe. There's quite a few monuments to it and connections with it still. And from there, he eventually went to Thessalonica, as it's called in sort of Bible study context, modern day
Yeah.
Thessaloniki.
Hmm.
Um, and Again, he spoke with the Jewish people, the Hebrews who were there, and some accepted, some didn't. Um, and he finally he ha and we have another, of course, we have another two letters in the Bible: First Thessalonians, Second Thessalonians,
Hmm.
which, Thessaloniki. It's one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities.
Is
Um,
it? Yes.
yes,
Hmm.
certainly in Europe, if
Hmm.
not, and I guess in the world in a wider sense.
Hmm.
So, you still have, if you go to Thessaloniki, you can still see the Roman remains from a slightly later period, from,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was Galerius who built a lot
Well,
of the.
that was where my sort of connection began when
Yes.
I thought about the in Serbia we have Felix Romuliana, which is
Yes.
or Gamzigrad, which is Galerius's palace
Yeah.
near Zaječar in the east of Serbia. And yes, when I was there in Thessalonica and wandering around with my son at one stage, we ended up in the by chance, more or less, in the rotunda
Yes.
that Galerius built there in the it's early fourth century, I think. Yeah,
That's right. That's
306.
right. He was right at the beginning of the fourth century.
And he
Yeah.
has a triumphal gate there as well, didn't he?
That's
Where
right.
the
That's right.
yes,
That was, I think, a victory against the Persians, that
yes, yeah,
commemorates. There's that. And then you can go down the hill a bit, and there was a palace by the sea, because
right.
the sea line has moved a bit. So,
Hmm.
but there's an extensive area between the houses, the blocks and the shops and so on. And
Right.
lots of interesting stuff there. You can look around and see,
I
uh,
missed that. Yeah.
history. Yeah.
We went
Yeah.
to the Museum of Byzantine
Oh yeah.
Archaeology, I think
Yeah. That's
was
good
it.
as well. A lot of uh,
That
relics there.
that was interesting stuff there, mosaics and
Yeah, I mean, if you're really interested, you can spend days in Thosset. There's so much information, you can
mm,
read all these information boards. You can go to the museum, the general historical one, and then there's also the Byzantine one. Um, so, so yeah, and it's all in the Bible as well, in the New Testament, First and Second Thessalonians. Um, and from
and
there, he headed up to the hills, in fact,
right, right,
to Veria. In the English Bible, it's often called Berea, I think, because
right,
the b is like in
yeah,
Greek, that's v, in fact, in pronunciation.
hmm,
Um, so that all we know about, we don't, there's not much about Veria, but we know that they searched the scriptures daily. This was their to see if these things were so. So the apostle Paul came and preached the gospel, and they were obviously, there was a synagogue there. They had the Bible, the Old Testament, and they were
hmm,
looking to see if what he said, matched the biblical account.
right, right,
So that's
hmm,
Varia, and it's a beautiful place. There's a beautiful valley there, um, which has a lot of significance in Orthodoxy. It was a sort of a Mount Athos type place. There were lots of monasteries
right,
in
right,
this valley, and this is the place where St. Gregory Palamas went. Uh,
right, right,
he similarly, I think he was getting away from Turkish, sort of persecution, to just
hmm,
escaping from the hustle and bustle of the city. And there was a monastery there, and there's a cave. where he spent, they say, like weekdays. He was like just in he lived as a solitary on weekdays,
Hmm.
and then at the weekend, on Saturday, Sunday, he was with the other monks. Um, so that was part of a very important part of his life, like a formative part before he went out. Went to become the Archbishop of Thessaloniki and his public life.
Right. Right. Hmm.
So anyway, yeah, that there you go. That I think that's talking about the Balkans as very explicitly
Yeah.
mentioned. I mean, and then we go, of course, we go down to Corinth, um, and Athens, which is
Right. Yeah.
still in the Balkans.
And Paul was a Greek speaker, was he? Did he
Yes,
speak
yeah,
Aramaic like
yeah.
Jesus
I
as
mean,
well?
he was a Hebrew, okay,
Hmm.
and he was brought up under a famous rabbi.
Hmm.
So he was very well learned in the scriptures,
Hmm.
the scriptures. Um, but yeah, Greek was the lingua franca of the educated. Well, that's how we have
Yeah.
the Bible in the New Testament, because basically with Alexander the Great's conquest of the known world, 3 centuries before Christ, uh, Greek became the world language, if you like.
Hmm.
And Latin was obviously that you were now under the Roman Empire, so Latin was becoming dominant as well. But in Greek
Yeah.
was the sort of in place, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had the Bible was translated, the Old Testament was translated in shortly after the time of Alexander into Greek
Yeah.
by 70 scholars. It's called the Septuagint from 70.
Right.
Um,
Right. Hmm.
and in Orthodoxy, that is considered the most accurate Old Testament, because the understanding is that later that the Hebrew text was sort of in some places doctored to against the Christian
Right.
doctrine.
Right.
So
Right.
therefore, it seemed that the translation they made was a better snapshot of the original Hebrew than
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
we call the Masoretic text, the text which is now used.
And when Paul came to the Balkans, he was essentially coming to the Hebrew diaspora there, right?
Yeah, that was always the starting point. It was
Yeah.
going to the synagogue. Um,
Hmm.
but obviously, Gentiles were converted. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but certainly, the Hebrew diaspora was the starting point.
And do we have any fixed dates for this? Do we know exactly when he arrived
Well,
in?
it's generally like the sixth decade, we can say.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
So it is at about the time when the Jewish temple in Jerusalem was destroyed,
yeah, it's a
then.
bit before. I think that's said to be 70, isn't it? 70 AD.
Yes, yeah. Hmm.
Um, so it's like the Neronian, Paul himself was martyred by under Nero,
I
so which
see.
puts
Right,
that, I
right.
think that puts
Mhm.
that in the 60s.
So yes,
Um,
because it was
yeah,
that was before the destruction of the temple. Right,
that's
I
right. So
see.
yeah, it was before. Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
Mhm.
So, you have, he's referencing the whole Hebrew economy often. And then there's the letter of Hebrews, which,
Yeah.
again, Orthodox view is that was written by the Apostle Paul. It's not signed. It's not a signed letter. It doesn't start as most of his, he says, Paul, an apostle. That's how he starts most of his letters.
Hmm.
But that doesn't. And, um, sort of a lot of modern scholarship has questioned whether it was written by the Apostle Paul, but certainly this is the tradition of the church that he did write it. Um, and that reflects on the whole, the priesthood of Christ, and how this is the new uh, priesthood compared to the
Right,
Aaronic
right.
one,
Hmm.
the Hebrew one. Um,
Great. Yeah. And a lot of I know that was the area that I was looking at. I suppose but we the so this is still very very early. It's still second century, right? No, first century,
yeah, this is first century. Yeah, yeah,
third century. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
yeah.
So in the next 200-300 years,
Yes.
Christianity. took root and spread
That's right. So again,
throughout the empire.
if we're talking about the Balkans, earliest Christian communities, absolutely, first
Hmm.
century were on at least the coast, we can say, the coast of the Balkans.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, we know that Paul went to Illyria. Yeah, so he came further. There's
Hmm.
not much about this in the Bible. We don't have any letters to the Illyrians or anything like that. But you know, I think a lot of people think he did go up the Dalmatian coast to some extent, or
Right, right.
I don't know.
Hmm.
What really haven't studied that. Um, but he does mention Illyria that he went there. Um, so yeah, did that at the very early, and then of course you had the whole period of really Christianity being on the fringe, legally, so it was growing, but it
Hmm.
was basically a persecuted religion.
Yeah.
Um,
They were very good at looking after them, looking after each other, right? At raising funds and protecting their communities. As I
yeah,
understood it, this
yeah,
is something that grew out of the Jewish diaspora to a degree, right? That it was a similar process.
yeah, yes. I guess that they had that there was that background, wasn't there,
Hmm.
of being some sort of minority.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Hmm.
living in that way. So certainly it's interesting how, the church was quite developed, really. The whole order, bishops, priests, deacons, they had their books, they had, and they were able to build churches in some places, so, the degree of persecution varied geographically. Uh,
Hmm.
so like if you were right in the middle of and of course politically, depending on the emperor, depending on things. So I
Yes.
think
Yes.
even one
Hmm.
emperor became a Christian, I think, and um, something happened. I'm not sure how if he didn't stay in power very long. But anyway, so
Hmm.
there were these persecution came in waves. I think they talk about the 10 great persecutions of the early
Really,
church.
that
Yeah,
many? Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so. So yes, and even up into the heart of the Balkans, because what's
Hmm.
now Belgrade? What was the Latin name of Belgrade? Uh,
Singidunum,
Singidunum. Yeah. Um, I
which is a
think
Celtic name, in fact, but
yes,
that
yes,
Dum is like done with
yeah.
Edinburgh, Dunedin, yeah.
And then the other one
Uh,
is what's the one which is now on the Sava River? We talked about this recently, didn't we?
yes, yes,
Is that
the
Sirmium? Is that
capital of
Sirmium?
Mercia, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, so there are these towns, and there are martyrs from
mhm.
these towns. So these were sort of classic Roman uh, cities, towns,
Yes.
and they had the Christian. So every substantial Roman settlement would have a Christian community, and so
Hmm.
we have records of martyrdom from central, not just from the coastal region of the Balkans. Um, So yeah, that sort of brings us up to, I think you were looking at the
Well, I was looking
Diocletian.
at the later the Diocletian and
Yes,
Galerius and what's his name? Maximian, yeah,
yes,
and Constantinus,
yes,
Constantine's father, who and they've had this tetrarchy, so called,
yes,
and but again, Diocletian, at least when he retired, built his palace on the Adriatic coast there.
yes,
Galerius, when in his the later I think I'm not sure when he actually built Gamsgrad or Felix Romulaana, but it was he was he became a god there. That is
yes. Yeah, well, they say that
the
he was the
apotheosis.
driving force, because probably the
Yeah.
greatest persecution was under Diocletian. Um,
Hmm.
and he was more of an administrator, soldier type. And it was the sort of threat to the state
Hmm.
and the order of things that bothered him about Christianity. But they say that Galerius was really the most fanatical persecutor of Christians.
Yeah, and
Uh,
calling for them to be burnt alive. Yes.
yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had this huge persecution um, under Diocletian, but Galerius, being one of his vice emperor. What was his rank?
I can't. They had they started out as Caesar, I think, and
Yeah,
ended up as Augustus.
yeah.
Whether
Well,
there was
there was
anything
tetrarchy, wasn't
between.
there? So there
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in the West there was a Caesar Augustus, and in the East there was a Caesar Augustus. So I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
team it is Diocletian and Galerius was in the East, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Constantinus and Maximian, I
yeah,
guess,
that's
in the
it.
West.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. So um, that was where that's the persecution. And just looking at our sort of notes here, it mentions Nicomedia. Now Nicomedia is strictly not in the Balkans. It's just on the other side of the Bosphorus. Okay.
Hmm.
But this was a sort of it was alternative seat of empire.
Yeah.
So this was the eastern seat of the empire. Although Galerius
And
was
this
like a
was before
vassal.
Constantinople was
Yeah, that's
called
before Constantinople was
Constantinople.
established, in fact.
Yeah.
Um, so it was an imperial city, and it was the scene of I don't know, amazing is the right word, but great persecution happened. A lot of the great martyr St. George, he was martyred there. The
Hmm.
incredible account of him, you know, appearing before the emperor, numerous times. Each time he was like, tortured. Everyone thought he was dead, but he survived and he carried on. Um,
Yeah.
so that's an incredible account. But there was, for example, at one point a church was actually burned down with 20,000 Christians inside, and when we remember this in the Orthodox Church,
Yeah.
the martyrs. Um, so that
And
again.
the,
So that,
the Thessalonica has its patron saint,
yes, of
Saint
course.
Demetrius.
Of course,
Yeah.
St. Demetrius, yeah, that's right. So he is considered one of the, sort of on the level with St. George, this great
Hmm.
martyr who sacrificed everything. He was a highly gifted young noble, so he could have
Hmm.
become, the emperor eventually, probably.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he had the world at his feet, but he, chose Christ, and so he was martyred. And Nestor, his friend, who fought the giant in the Hippodrome. Um, so yeah, great martyrs.
I don't know that story. Nestor, who fought the giants in the Hippodrome.
Yeah, yeah. That there was a giant. There was a sort of Goliath type character who
Right.
used to
Right.
throw his victims onto spikes. On the horrible, gory story.
Right.
And Nestor went to Saint Demetrius, who was in prison already, and he said, "Do
Hmm.
I have your blessing to fight this giant?" And he went there
Right.
and he killed this terrible monster of Sky. And but of course he was martyred rapidly after that, having the emperor, whoever was watching, I think it was the emperor or the governor, was not obviously so pleased about
And
it.
this was incorporated into the Roman games, essentially.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's another interesting question. To what extent, yeah, it was probably part of it, wasn't it? Part of the games was
Hmm.
was the bringing the Christians on for
Feeding the Christians to the
that's
lions,
yeah, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
That kind of thing.
But
Yeah.
yeah, of course, we're talking about a later period now, aren't we? Towards the end of the um,
Yeah, so that's it. So this
Roman Empire.
whole edifice of pagan, religion and seen as under threat from Christianity. So really, the
Mhm.
problem was that Christians wouldn't acknowledge other gods. So it wasn't so much that the Romans objected to them worshiping Christ or seeing Christ as God,
Yes.
but the fact that exclusively, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all they had to do to save their lives was to offer a little bit of incense to the Roman
Yes.
gods, um, but they wouldn't, and so that's what cost them their lives. But then in the meantime, the providence of God was raising up Emperor Constantine.
Yes. In Iberacum, just down the road from here.
I was going to say, I just wanted to bring that. You can give us a bit of the British side of it. So,
Well,
um,
again, I don't know an awful lot, but of course, in Constantine was born in Niš,
yes,
what is now Niš in Serbia.
yes,
But um, at the time, was it the time of the death of Galerius? I'm not quite sure, but
pretty
anyway,
much, pretty much. Yeah, 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 yeah,
his
yeah.
his legions. He was in Britannia, in Britain,
Yes, of course, of
and
course.
his legions declared him emperor in Eboracum, which was the later to become the city of York. Uh,
Yes, yes.
so I'm up in the northeast of England at the moment, and that's quite close to where I am at the moment.
Yeah,
So
that's right. So you're
there's a
ranging from one end
statue
of
there
his.
of Constantine
That's
outside
right.
the
So he
minster
was,
in
because his
York.
father was the
His
uh,
father, yes,
Constantius, wasn't it? His father,
Constantius, yes.
yeah, um, was the Caesar, right? Or the,
Yes, I
yeah.
believe so. Hmm.
So, yeah. So, and he was declared emperor, and he came back, and of course took over, didn't he? He defeated Maximian.
Yes, yeah, that was, and then there's what his edict in of Milan
Yeah, that's right.
sorry,
So once
Milan
he
of
got
Milan, yeah.
control, the Edict of
Mhm.
Milan,
Yeah.
which, as we see on the screen there, religious freedom. So basically, um, no longer persecuted. That was the key point, that you suddenly have this complete change of status.
Hmm.
Uh, it didn't, um, you know,
It
become
sounded
become the official
significant to
religion at
me
that point.
that it also included restoration of property.
Is that what you've heard?
That's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I think. I think I read somewhere,
Oh,
which,
right.
at any rate,
Yes.
just as a side note, it indicated that to me that the Christians were financially quite significant as well. I mean, economically
Yes.
quite
Well, that's
significant.
right. That's right.
They
Yeah.
owned quite a lot of
And
property.
there must have been money
Mhm.
there to build churches and fund,
But
you
yes,
know.
part of the persecution was always, wasn't it? They were it was the Roman authorities were targeting the texts. It was the scriptures that they were after as much as anything. They wanted uh, the um,
Well,
the Christians to
to destroy
surrender
them, you
their
mean?
texts, yeah,
Or
to destruction.
yes, yes. That's interesting.
Which again,
Yeah.
I found an interesting point that if you erase the word, then you.
Yes, that's right. And it's
Mhm.
this whole thing also about erasing study and thought and thinking, isn't it? You know, that
Mhm.
we see that is often a tool of totalitarianism, isn't it? You know, to stop people being different and to think and to read.
But again, it shows you how the faith was spread through the copying and the
Yes,
dissemination of these texts from place to place.
yes.
Mm.
Well, that's
And
it. I mean, you know, we have the numerous codexes, yeah, of the
Mhm.
Bible. Um, And there's something actually called the majority text, and it means that the text that's based on, you know, what the majority of these copies, you know, there's been modern um, what's textual theory, which is that, oh, look, we found a text which is older and it's a bit different. So then they've
Yes.
taken some bits out of the New Testament on the basis that they
Mhm.
got this very old text, but it's only one or two texts, whereas, you know, there are hundreds which witness.
And is it true that, I mean, some of them were they were different, well, let's say, branches of Christianity? There's the Arians, of course, and more Gnostic
Yes, I mean, I think the
texts perhaps
Gnostics, for
differed in
example,
some.
had their own sort of additional texts. So
Right,
there were
right.
lots of other um, you know, religious texts floating around at the time,
Hmm.
and the church finally sort of defined, you know, what is scripture, what is sort of readable, okay, but not scripture, and what is actually heretical and Gnostic and so on. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so you know, there were a lot of texts moving around.
And from a historical point of view, when we know what we know about Constantine, and then we got here the Council of Nicaea, of course, coming up in
Yes.
325. is it true that we're limited to Constantine's biographer? What's his Eusebius is his
Yes.
name?
Yes.
He's
In
the
Greek,
main source, isn't he?
Eusebius. I think in
Eusebius,
English they
right,
say
right,
Eusebius.
right,
Eusebius.
right,
Yes. Um, yeah, there are other accounts. There are other
right,
accounts.
right. Hmm.
I mean, Eusebius is like the main one.
Hmm.
Um, but I saw some sort of parallel text which had like six columns, and some of the columns were empty for certain periods. But you know,
Right.
there's quite a lot of information about that. Yeah, are you talking about
Hmm.
the council itself, or what?
Well, I'm really talking about the biography of Constantine,
Oh, I see.
and
Constantine himself. Ah, okay.
is that?
Well, yeah,
I'm not sure, to be honest. Hmm.
yeah. That's a good question, actually. We
I'd
can
have to look into that to be
we
more
can find out
interested
more
in that.
about that one.
But yeah, yeah.
Um,
But should we
yes,
move on to the
okay.
Council of Nicaea and its
That's
importance,
it.
rather
That's
than?
it. And for this broadcast, we got a few
Okay.
minutes, but
Mhm.
we can just sort of touch on it, and then maybe do another episode on
Again,
starting
it's
there.
important to say where it is, isn't it? I mean, again, it's not really in the Balkans, but it is just on the other
That's
side
right.
of the Sea of
Just
Marmara.
over the
Yeah,
sea. Yeah, just over. It's
yeah.
just down the coast a bit. It's now called Izmit. That's the name of
Yes,
the
yeah.
Turkish city.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, this
It's
was.
another interesting part of the world. I would love to do a tour of that part of the.
Yes, well, I did the seven churches. Okay,
Mhm,
in the last book of the Bible, you have it starts with the letters to the seven churches of Asia. So these were the main cities of Asia Minor, as it then was.
mhm.
Um, and there's a lot of extant archaeology there.
Yeah.
Ephesus being the most extensive.
Hmm.
You've got, like a long street there. You've got an amphitheater.
Yes, I've been to Ephesus.
You've been
Yes.
there, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But you can go to these other ones, and just pick up that whole, the biblical scene
Hmm.
as it
Hmm.
was. So yeah, this was very much part of ancient Greece, wasn't it? The west coast of Asia Minor, now Turkey,
Yeah. Hmm.
and so sort of not Balkan in the strictest sense, but very much, in that region.
Part of the same milieu,
Yeah,
the
media.
same
Yeah, that's it.
cultural
That's it.
space. Yeah.
Okay, well, we have to stop this broadcast, but I think we could have another one because the council
Yeah.
is so significant. So we thank everyone for their attention, and we'll see everybody on the next video.
Great.